How could you do this to me? I called you my sister and you are getting married to my man behind my back. I never meant to hurt you.
She stood at the back of the church in her dusty travel clothes and watched her sister walk down the aisle in her dress to her man with her ring. Abigail had trusted Rita with everything: her dress, her heart, her future. Rita took all three and left nothing but silence. How do you survive the day you discover that the person who destroyed you was sleeping in your house and calling you sister? The village of Umueze woke up slowly every morning. Roosters called first, then the smell of firewood, then the sound of women sweeping their compounds before the sun got too high. Abigail loved this. She had loved it her whole life. She was 26 years old, and by every measure the village used, she was blessed. She had a small tailoring shop at the junction that earned her good money. She had a mother who loved her fiercely. She had a best friend in Chioma who told her the truth even when it hurt. And she had Daniel Tall, quiet Daniel, who had walked into her shop 3 years ago to fix a torn shirt and had never really left. Their wedding was in 3 weeks. The dress was already made. The fabric alone had taken Abigail 4 months to save. 4. But the dress was more than new fabric. The foundation was her grandmother's heavily embroidered ivory lace that Mama Grace had preserved for 20 years in a box under the bed. Abigail had brought both together, old love and new savings, stitched into one dress. She had taken everything to a seamstress in Owerri, who added new panels and restored the lace until it was breathtaking. When Abigail tried it on, Mama Grace had cried without shame. "You look like an angel," Mama Grace had whispered. "Your grandmother would have wept." That evening, Rita came home from the market and saw the dress hanging on the wooden door. She stopped walking. Something moved across her face fast, like a shadow crossing water, and then it was gone. She smiled. She said, "Abigail, you will be the most beautiful bride this village has ever seen." She hugged her sister. She laughed. She helped Mama Grace cook pepper soup and sang while she stirred. Nobody saw the shadow, nobody except the dress, which hung silent and did not lie. Rita was 23. She was pretty in a sharp, restless way. She had finished school, applied for many jobs, and gotten none. She lived in Abigail's shadow without anyone meaning to put her there. Abigail was simply more loved, more successful, more chosen. And Rita had swallowed that bitterness for years, with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. 2 days before she was set to travel to the city for a job training program, she came to Abigail with a profit suggestion. "Let me take the dress," she said. "The seamstress in Lagos can do the final adjustments. The beadwork on the left sleeve is loose. I saw it. You don't want it falling apart on your wedding day." Abigail hesitated. The dress was everything. But this was Rita, her sister, her blood. "Are you sure?" Abigail asked. "Am I sure?" Rita laughed and pulled her into a hug. "I would die before I let anything happen to your dress." Abigail folded the dress carefully. She wrapped it in a white cloth and placed it in a bag. She handed it to Rita like she was handing her the most precious thing she owned, because she was. Rita took it with both hands and smiled. That night, as Rita packed for the city, Mama Grace stood at the doorway of the room and watched her. Something sat heavy in her chest, a feeling without a name. She wanted to say something. She opened her mouth once and closed it again. Mothers feel things they cannot explain. They carry warnings in their bones. As Rita walked away with that wedding dress, Mama Grace whispered a prayer. She didn't know why her heart was heavy, but mothers know. Mothers always know. The first week passed like a held breath. Abigail told herself Rita was busy settling in. The city swallowed people whole new place. New people, new routines. She understood. She waited. She focused on the wedding preparations. She visited the caterer. She confirmed the chairs. She counted days on her fingers like a child counting gifts. Daniel called twice that week. Short calls. Busy, he said. Work is plenty, he said. She believed him. She loved him. Love makes believers out of all of us. The second week came, and the silence from Rita grew teeth. Abigail called Rita's number on a Tuesday morning. It rang twice and went off. She called again straight to voicemail. She sent a message, no reply. She sent another, nothing. She stared at her phone like it had personally betrayed her, then told herself the network in Lagos was terrible. Everyone said so. She would hear from Rita soon. But soon never came. Daniel came to visit that Thursday, the first time in 11 days. He sat across from her in Mama Grace's parlour and drank his water too quickly. His eyes moved around the room like he was looking for a way out. She asked him directly, "Have you heard from Rita? She's not picking my calls." He shrugged, said he hadn't spoken to her. Said Rita was probably just caught up in city life. His voice was too flat, too unbothered, like a man answering a question he had rehearsed. When she asked about the wedding plans, he said, "We have time." When she asked why he hadn't visited, he said, "Work." When she reached for his hand, he let her hold it but didn't hold her back. She noticed. She said nothing. Chioma noticed everything else. She came to the shop on a Wednesday afternoon, sat on the bench near the window, and watched Abigail sew in silence for a while. Then she said, "When last did you speak to Rita?" "She'll call," Abigail said without looking up. "Abigail, she's busy, Chioma. Abigail, look at me." Abigail looked up. Chioma's face was careful, controlled. The way a person looks when they're holding something sharp and don't want to drop it. "Something is wrong," Chioma said quietly. "I feel it." Abigail shook her head. "You worry too much." But that night, alone in her room, she sat on her bed and felt it too, a coldness she couldn't explain. She pressed her hand to her chest like she was checking if her heart was still there. It was, but it was afraid. After Daniel left that Thursday, she stood at the door and watched him walk away. He didn't turn back. Not once. That night, she saw something she wasn't meant to see. Daniel had left his phone on the table for a moment. A message lit up the screen. She didn't read it, she only saw him pick it up, read it, and smile. A slow, private smile. The kind that doesn't belong to a man with a wedding in 7 days and a fiancé sitting 3 feet away. He looked up, saw her watching. The smile died. "Who is that?" she asked. "Work," he said. Before she could ask, which colleague sends messages that make a man smile like that? 1 week left before the wedding. No dress, no sister, no explanation. Abigail packed a small bag and headed to the motor park. She was going to the city to find her sister and her wedding dress. She had no idea she was walking straight into a nightmare. The bus ride to Lagos took 7 hours. Abigail sat by the window and watched Nigeria blur past red earth, roadside traders, children waving at the bus for no reason. Under normal circumstances, she would have smiled at the children. Today she just watched them disappear. Chioma had insisted on coming. Abigail hadn't fought her. Some journeys are too heavy to carry alone. They arrived at the address Rita had given for her workplace, a logistics company on Abeokuta Street. Abigail walked in confidently. She asked for Rita Okafor at the front desk. The receptionist frowned. "We have no staff by that name." Abigail's stomach dropped. Maybe she's new? She started 3 weeks ago. The receptionist checked again, shook her head. "Nobody by that name. Sorry." Outside, Chioma held Abigail's arm. "The apartment address. Let's try there." The apartment address led them to a quiet street in Surulere. They knocked. A neighbour poked her head out. Yes, she knew Rita. Sweet girl, always well-dressed. But she hadn't been home in 4 days. She mentioned a wedding, the neighbour said. Something about a church on Bode Thomas. The word wedding landed on Abigail like a stone. They found the church. There were cars outside, guests in bright Asso Ebi, a photographer adjusting his lens. A small crowd gathering at the entrance with the restless energy of people waiting for something beautiful to happen. Abigail's feet slowed. Her body knew before her mind did. The doors were open. Churches in Lagos often leave them open for late guests. Nobody stopped her. Nobody looked at her dusty clothes twice. She was just another woman walking into a wedding she was never supposed to attend. She moved toward the back and stood half hidden behind a pillar. Chioma held her hand. The organ played. The doors at the front opened. The bride walked out. Abigail saw the dress first. She recognized every stitch, every panel. The restored ivory lace. The beadwork on the left sleeve still slightly loose. Her grandmother's lace, her mother's tears, her 4 months of savings. Her wedding dress. Then she saw the face above the dress, Rita. Then she saw the man at the altar, Daniel, her dress, her sister, her wedding, stolen. The sound that came out of Abigail was not a scream. It was something older than a scream, something that started in her stomach and tore through her chest and came out broken and shapeless. Every head near the door turned. Rita saw her. Her face went white as bone. Daniel saw her. His face showed nothing. No guilt, no shame. Just cold, flat eyes that looked at her like she was a stranger at the wrong wedding. Abigail's legs gave way. Chioma caught her before she hit the ground. "I have you," Chioma whispered, holding her tight. "I have you! I have you!" Rita took 1 step toward the back of the church. Her mouth opened. "Abigail, I can explain." But the priest was speaking. Daniel had turned back to the altar. The wedding continued. Like Abigail was nothing. Like she had never existed. Like 3 years of love was dust on a shelf that someone had simply wiped away. Chioma pulled her outside into the hot Lagos air. Through the open window she could hear the priest's voice. She could hear the guests clap. She could hear Rita laugh, that familiar laugh she had heard her whole life, now attached to the worst moment of her life. Chioma pressed Abigail's head against her shoulder so she wouldn't have to look. But she could still hear. Hearing was its own kind of torture. Abigail could not speak. Shock had stolen every word she owned. As they said "I do," Abigail's world ended. Everything she believed about love, about family, about trust, died in that moment. But what she didn't know was that Rita's victory would be very, very short. Unauthorized welcomed Abigail home the way villages always do, with whispers. She could feel the eyes on her back as she walked from the motor park. She kept her head up, not out of pride. Out of exhaustion, she had no energy left to look down. Mama Grace was waiting at the gate. She took one look at her daughter's face and understood everything without a single word. She opened her arms. Abigail walked into them and stayed there. She didn't cry. She had cried on the bus for 7 hours until her body had nothing left to give. She was empty. Completely, dangerously empty. The village found out by the next morning. A place like Unauthorized could not keep a story like this quiet. Abigail, jilted. Rita, the traitor. Daniel, the snake. People shook their heads outside their gates. Women clicked their tongues. Some came to the house to offer sympathy. Abigail sat in the back room and could not receive them. She couldn't eat. The smell of food turned her stomach. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the dress. She saw Daniel's cold eyes. She saw Rita's white face. She burned the photos on the third day. Every photograph of her and Daniel. Every ticket stub she had kept from places they had gone. A birthday card he had written in his careful handwriting. She put it all in the metal bowl Mama Grace used for burning rubbish, and she set it alight and stood watching until there was nothing left but ash and the smell of smoke. Then Rita sent a message, 7 words, and a full stop. "I'm sorry, but I love him. You'll find someone else." Abigail read it once. She read it again. Then something inside her, something that had been bending and bending since the church door, finally snapped clean. She put phone face down. She walked to where Mama Grace was sitting. She sat across from her mother, and she said in a voice so quiet it was almost nothing, "I have no sister anymore." Mama Grace began to cry, not the soft tears of sympathy, the deep, ugly crying of a woman carrying a secret too long. Abigail watched her mother's face and felt fear move through her exhaustion. "Mama, what are you not telling me?" Mama Grace wiped her face, wiped it again. She stood and went to the old metal box under her bed, the same box that had held the wedding dress for 20 years. She came back with a folded paper. She sat down. She held Abigail's hands. "Rita is not my daughter," she said. The room went still. "Your father had an affair 25 years ago. When the woman died giving birth, your father brought the baby home. He begged me. I raised Rita as my own. I loved her as my own." Her voice broke. "I never told either of you. I was trying to protect everyone." Abigail pulled her hands away slowly. She stood up. She walked to the window. She stood there with her back to her mother, looking at the compound where she and Rita had played as children. The mango tree, the cracked concrete. All the years she had believed they were the same blood, the same story, the same family. "Keep going," she said quietly, without turning around. "Tell me everything." Mama Grace took a breath. "There is a will. Your father wrote it before he died. He left everything, the land, this house, all of it to his blood daughter. To you, Abigail. Rita received money for her education. That was her portion. She has no claim to anything else. Abigail turned slowly from the window. And Daniel? She asked. Something in her voice already knew. Mama Grace nodded heavily. Daniel knew about the land. He came here to marry it, not to marry you. Rita told him she was the blood daughter. She told him she would inherit everything. Mama Grace shook her head slowly. She lied to him, Abigail. She doesn't know the truth herself. Neither does he. Abigail looked at her mother with tears streaming down her face. Does Rita know? She whispered. Mama Grace shook her head. No. And neither does Daniel. Let them enjoy their stolen victory. Truth has a way of revealing itself. And when it does, the fall will be great. 3 months passed. Abigail did not waste them. She reopened her tailoring shop 2 weeks after returning home. Her hands shook the first day. By the 3rd day, the shaking stopped. By the 2nd week, she had 4 customers. By the end of the month, she had 12. Work had always been her anchor. She held it now like a lifeline. She did not speak of Rita. She did not speak of Daniel. When the village women tried to pull the story from her, she smiled politely and changed the subject. She was healing the way broken bones heal, slowly, quietly, from the inside out. Then, one Thursday morning, a car drove into Umueze. Daniel stepped out first, then Rita. They looked different. Daniel's shirt was wrinkled. Rita had lost weight in a way that did not suit her. They walked with the careful pride of people who were struggling but refused to show it. The village watched from behind curtains and compound gates. They came to the house. Daniel spoke first. He was polite, controlled. He said they were newlyweds trying to build a life. He said the land, the family land, needed to be discussed. He said Rita, as a daughter of the family, had rights. He said they were prepared to sell their portion and use the money to start fresh. He spoke like a lawyer, like it was already settled. Rita sat beside him and said nothing. She would not look at Abigail. Baba John, the village head, had been called. He sat in Mama Grace's parlour with 2 elders and listened to everything with the patience of a man who had seen every kind of human foolishness in his long life. When Daniel finished speaking, Baba John turned to Mama Grace. Mama Grace stood. She went to the metal box. She brought out the will folded, stamped, witnessed by 2 men whose signatures the elders recognized. Baba John read it aloud. I leave all property, land and holdings to my blood daughter, Abigail. My outside child, Rita, has received her portion through education provided during my lifetime. No further claim exists. The room was silent. Rita's face changed slowly. Confusion first, then a dawning, terrible understanding. That's wrong, she said. Her voice was thin. I am also his daughter. I should also inherit Rita. Mama Grace's voice was gentle but final. You are not my biological daughter. Your father had an affair. When your mother died, we brought you home and raised you as our own. You were loved as our own. But the blood inheritance belongs to Abigail alone. The words hit Rita like a physical blow. She actually flinched. She turned to Daniel. Daniel was not looking at her. He was staring at the will. His jaw was tight. His hands were flat on his knees and completely still. The stillness of a man calculating how badly he had been tricked. He stood up slowly. "You told me you would inherit everything," he said to Rita. His voice was low, dangerous. "You told me you were the blood daughter. Daniel, I didn't know. You told me." He picked up his car keys from the table. He walked to the door. He stopped. For one moment, Abigail thought he was going to turn around to say something, anything, that showed he was still human. He didn't. He walked out. The door didn't slam. That was almost worse. A slammed door means there is still feeling. A quiet door means you were never worth the emotion. It closed softly, finally, like he was leaving a room he had never cared about. Rita broke. She slid from the chair to her knees on the floor, and she wept the way people weep when everything collapses at once: the man, the plan, the lie, the life she had stolen and lost in the same season. "Sister," she wept, reaching toward Abigail. "Please, I'm sorry. Please. I know I have no right to ask, but please." Everyone looked at Abigail. She had not spoken since they arrived. She sat straight in her chair, hands folded in her lap, face quiet. Now she looked at Rita on the floor. She looked at her for a long time. Then she spoke. "You didn't just take my dress, Rita. You took my trust, my love, my dreams. You called yourself my sister while you plotted to destroy me. And for what? A man who never loved you? A land you were never entitled to? You won nothing. You lost everything: your sister, your home, your dignity. I loved you. I would have shared everything with you. But you chose jealousy over love. Now live with your choice." She paused. "Just one breath. I already am." She stood and walked out of the room. Mama Grace looked at Rita, still crumpled on the floor. Her heart was broken, but it was still a mother's heart. "You can stay," she said quietly, "in the boys' quarters, as a helper. If you want to rebuild yourself, you can start there." Rita nodded. She had nothing else left to nod to. The village talked about it for months. Abigail did not rush into anything after that. She did not look for another man. She looked for herself first, the version of herself that existed before she handed her heart to people who didn't deserve it. She found her slowly, stitch by stitch, in her little shop at the junction. A year later, the school teacher, a quiet man named Emeka, who had watched her from a respectful distance, brought his mother to formally greet Mama Grace. He was patient. He was honest. He did not rush her. She healed slowly, carefully, wisely. And the village learned what Abigail now carried in her bones like a truth she would never unlearn. Jealousy is a poison that destroys the one who drinks it. What you steal from your sister in darkness will be taken from you in broad daylight. Rita wanted to be Abigail so badly that she lost herself completely. She wore Abigail's dress, married Abigail's man, but she could never have Abigail's heart, Abigail's peace, or Abigail's inheritance. The dress was returned, torn and stained. The man was gone. He never loved either of them. But Abigail remained broken but not destroyed, hurt but not defeated, betrayed but not bitter. Some lessons are learned through pain. Rita learned that betrayal always comes back to the betrayer. And Abigail learned that not everyone who calls you sister is your sister. Choose your trust carefully. Protect your peace fiercely. And remember, what is truly yours cannot be stolen. What can be stolen was never truly yours.